Now, in gaming, there are often many incentives to kill the bad guy. By doing so, you can unlock new powers, receive experience points, pick up new weapons, or, at the very least, access new areas. But there's another factor that often drives the player to pounding enemies into the dirt, and that is blind hatred. After your nemesis has tortured your loved ones, kidnapped your child, or slaughtered your family, you're pretty much compelled to complete every task, wipe out every minion, and beat every level in order to destroy the person who caused you so much misery. But every once in a while, you'll encounter a foe that you just don't want to kill. When you realise how logical the antagonist motivation is, or you see a more human side to them, or the fact that they might just be so damn funny, you might lose a lot of impetus to put them in the ground. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game villains you hated killing. Number 10. The Beauty and the Beast Unit. Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Hideo Kojima's fourth outing of his most iconic gaming franchise has Solid Snake tasked with taking down Liquid Ocelot. During his mission, our one-eyed hero will face a hit squad called the Beauty and the Beast Unit. And because this group consists of 4 women, and because, let's face it, Hideo Kojima doesn't have a great time writing female characters, you probably just assume that they were only inserted into the plot to serve as one-dimensional femme fatales. But after destroying their nano-powered armor, the B&B members reveal how they've suffered from the atrocities of war, leaving them with PTSD. Instead of receiving psychiatric help, Liquid Ocelot preyed on the women's trauma to turn them into his own snake-hunting team. The all-female quartet only agreed to Ocelot's terms because they were under the impression that eliminating Snake would relieve their pain. So it turns out that these ladies aren't evil, nor do they have any personal problem with Snake. They are mentally fragile and were manipulated to become your enemy. What's worse is that none of them can survive after their cybernetic suit is disconnected from their body, so after each of them has their armor removed, all they can do is beg, cry, and then apologize before perishing. It's pretty grim. Number 9. Asgore Undertale. Despite serving as the penultimate enemy of Undertale, it's virtually impossible to dislike Asgore. Being the ruler of the underground, it's Asgore's sworn duty to break the barrier between worlds, allowing his people to gain access to the surface. To achieve this feat, Asgore must kill 7 humans and use their souls to destroy the barrier. Basically, Asgore must kill to bring peace. And although tyrants regularly use this excuse to justify their evil intentions, Asgore takes no joy in his actions. Considering his people will be trapped in the underground forever, unless Asgore does something, he's in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Even though he's still trying to kill you, you know that every aspect of his personality is from a pure place. He brings hope to the denizens of the underground. He loves gardening, he eats butterscotch pie, he says golly. And have you ever heard an evil person say golly before? Asgore may be your enemy, but he's far from a wicked one. He's a loving person who has been forced to make an impossible choice to save his people. Number 8. Grima. Fire Emblem Awakening. In Fire Emblem Awakening, Robin, Shrom, and the Shepherd army have united to prepare for the return of Grima, a fell dragon who awakens every millennium to ravage the world. Now, getting through this game on the Nintendo 3DS takes about 30 hours at least, but if you want to complete every single side quest, you're probably looking at over 100 hours of playtime here. And if you're playing this tactical RPG for that long, it's impossible not to get emotionally attached to its characters, especially your avatar Robin, because they are noble, determined, romantic, modest, and altruistic. In fact, their only real flaw is that they're overcritical of their own cooking, and that's why you get completely blindsided when you learn that Grima intends to return by using Robin as a vessel. In the climax, the player is left with 2 options. You can send Grima back into a deep slumber, knowing that he'll eventually return, or you can allow Robin to destroy the fell dragon, causing them both to fade to nothing. Whatever your choice may be, you can't help but feel a bit empty inside, knowing the ramifications of your actions. Number 7. Wheatley, Portal 2. Throughout Portal 2, a dim-witted robot called Wheatley helps Chell traverse through the Aperture Science Facility and defeat the nefarious supercomputer known as GLaDOS. Because Wheatley has assisted you from the very beginning, Chell believes the most sensible thing to do when she confronts GLaDOS is to swap her core for his, giving Wheatley full control of the facility. Immediately after doing so, Wheatley goes mad with power and attempts to kill Chell. GLaDOS then explains to Chell that Wheatley was designed to be incompetent in a vain attempt to hinder her intelligence. Left with no choice, Chell and GLaDOS team up and agree to deactivate Wheatley before his stupidity results in the facility's destruction. In the climax, Chell defeats Wheatley by portaling hurtling him to the moon moments before the building goes kablooey. And yet, you still feel bad at the idea of Wheatley floating through space forever. Even though he was trying to kill you, it was only because he was programmed to act like a moron. Until he was placed in GLaDOS's body, he was genuinely trying to help you. He betrayed you, not out of spite, but out of sheer idiocy. Number 6. Handsome Jack, Borderlands 2. Now, normally gamers feel bad about killing a villain because he or she had some redeemable quality. But that is definitely not the case with Borderlands 2's big bad Handsome Jack. This egomaniacal dictator belittles the player every time they fail to save somebody. He constantly reminds you of all of the friends that he's murdered. Time and time again, he proves to be the most arrogant, heartless, sadistic, smug, and malevolent person on the planet. And yet, you still don't want him to die for one simple reason, and that is, he is so goddamn entertaining. Whether he's bragging about his pony made of diamonds or talking about the time that he scooped a guy's eyeballs out with a spoon, you can't help but be amused by his innovative witticism and ridiculous anecdotes. As brilliant as Jack's dialogue is written, it's the impeccable delivery of voice actor Damon Clark that makes Handsome Jack the best character in the series by a country mile. Even when Jack is at your mercy in the game's closing moments, you'll allow him to prattle on as long as possible, just to hear every hilarious quip before finally finishing him off. Number 5. The Orphan of Kos, Bloodborne. Being the final boss of Bloodborne's The Old Hunters DLC, the player expects the Orphan of Kos to provide a serious challenge. But this nightmarish husk is so merciless, he's hailed as one of the toughest bosses ever. And since he's sure to make the player very well acquainted with death, you'd assume that you'd be over the moon after defeating him. However, you'll likely feel nothing but remorse from the Orphan of Kos's demise after learning of his origins. Based on the lore, it's been theorized that Kos's poor wizened child died after his father was desecrated by the Old Hunters. The child's mother cursed the Hunters and any who followed in their footsteps to a limbo-like realm called the Hunter's Nightmare, where the Orphan resides. Even if the player is oblivious to this backstory, it's unmistakable that this creature is suffering. I mean, anyone who tosses their own placenta around in a fight definitely has a few issues. And when he sobs beside his father's corpse, it definitely tugs on your heartstrings. As he gazes at the moon, paralyzed by his own melancholy, you just kind of want to leave him in peace. After you've learned of the Orphan's backstory, you want to kill him, not just to win the DLC, but to actually put an end to his suffering. Number 4. Grey Crow, Death's Door. In Death's Door, you play as a Reaper, a crow servant of death who makes an honest living harvesting souls. In the beginning of your adventure, you encounter a former Reaper called Grey Crow, who asks for your assistance. If you help him locate the soul that he was assigned to harvest, he can retire for good. And after you've collected all the main souls in your mission, you and Grey Crow walk through Death's Door, where his assigned soul supposedly resides. But upon entering, Death itself appears, alerting Grey Crow that he took too long to find his assigned soul, causing it to fade away. Realizing that he spent centuries on a fool's errand, Grey Crow is heartbroken and angered. Worse still, Death informs him that any soul that lives beyond their best before date is destined to go mad, meaning Grey Crow's lapse of sanity is inevitable. Almost on cue, Grey Crow becomes feral, forcing you to battle him to death. Even though it's the Reaper's duty to harvest souls, it's impossible to take any joy from this fight, knowing Grey Crow has wasted his life away. Number 3. Koylag, Dark Souls. Now, it's easy to perceive each enemy in Dark Souls as a mindless monster, even though many of them have detailed backstories that prove that they're anything but, and that goes double for Koylag the Chaos Witch. Since she is half woman, half demon spider. With her inflamed body, prolonged limbs, and her lava-belching mouth, there's no reason to believe that Koylag harbors any shred of humanity. But she is far more than first appears. By investigating her room, you'll find her sister, the Fair Lady, and if you speak to her, you'll learn that she's been left blind and gravely ill after she attempted to heal the residents of Blighttown. Knowing her fate, Koylag vowed to make her remaining moments as peaceful as possible. So when you broke into her domain, she wasn't attacking you out of malice, she was actually safeguarding her sister. And do you know what makes this more tragic? You won't know any of this unless you're wearing the old witch's ring when you encounter the Fair Lady. If you didn't equip this piece of jewelry, you were probably chuffed upon murdering Koylag, oblivious that all she wanted to do was protect her ailing sibling. Number 2. Ira Hoagboom, L.A. Noire. In the final stages of L.A. Noire, Detective Cole Phelps learns of an arsonist who's burning down houses throughout the city, which has resulted in the deaths of several civilians. But when Phelps learns the arsonist is a mentally ill man who's been manipulated by a deranged psychiatrist, you no longer see him as a monster, but a victim. However, it's all the more heartbreaking when Phelps learns that the man that he's hunting is Ira Hoagboom. a flamethrower from Phelps' squad during World War II. During one mission, Hoagboom was ordered to incinerate a cave under the belief the enemy was hiding within, but when he learned that he had just burned a group of civilians alive, he was left traumatized. As horrific as this revelation is, it's actually not the worst part. Hoagboom's orders were given by Cole Phelps, meaning our so-called hero is indirectly responsible for all the atrocities that he committed. When you finally confront Hoagboom in the final scene, you don't see him as an evil man. Instead, he comes across as a broken individual who's been taken advantage of by those in power. When Phelps' partner shoots him, Hoagboom doesn't even put up a fight, glad that his pain has come to an end. And number 1, The Stranger, The Walking Dead. When Lee is trying to survive the zombie apocalypse in The Walking Dead, a mysterious man hijacks his walkie-talkie signal, threatening to destroy his life. And when this unnamed person kidnaps a girl that Lee is protecting called Clementine, it's easy to assume the kidnapper is evil incarnate. But when you finally meet this stranger, you learn that he's the owner of the car that Lee's group ransacked earlier. Because they stole his food and supplies, the stranger's family died, compelling him to seek out Lee to exact his revenge. Despite the fact that Lee and his allies did what they needed to in order to survive, it doesn't change the fact that their actions killed a family and destroyed a man's life. Although we don't know anything about the stranger, including his name, it's safe to assume that he was a loving husband and father before his family was taken away from him. Just before Lee enters the stranger's room, every impulse is telling you to stomp this guy to death for kidnapping and endangering an innocent child. But after speaking to him, the player realizes the stranger isn't a monster, and instead, you are. Even though Lee has to murder the stranger to save Clementine, it's clear that he takes no pleasure in it, and neither does the player. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 video game villains you hated killing. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram where it's the same handle, RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. I hope that you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, because you deserve all the best things in life, alright? And do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You are a massive ledge, and I know I say that a lot, but I truly, truly mean it. I want you to go out there and smash your life goals today, because I believe in you, and you need to believe in yourself as well. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.